Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi Agut Moed Moedim L'Simcha. We're recording on the first day of Chol Moed Sukkot outside of the land of Israel, and so we start with the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Tes Amabez. The Mishnah on the bottom of 49b. Mishnah tells us if a man tries to marry a woman on the condition on Manash and the Kohen, condition that I'm a Kohen, v'nimtza Levi, turns out that he's actually a Levi. Or Levi v'nimtza Kohen, on the condition that he's a Levi, turns out he's a Kohen. Nasin v'nimtza Mamzer, on the condition he's a Nasin, turns out he's a Mamzer. These are lower classes of Yochsin, of lineage. Mamzer v'nimtza Nasin, or he's a Ben Ir, he says, I'm in a small city, v'nimtza Ben Krach, turns out he's in a large city, or Ben Krach v'nimtza Ben Ir, it's a large city, turns out he's in a small city. Almanasha Basi Karov Merchatz, on the condition that I'm close to a bathhouse, V'nimtza Rachok, he's far away, or Rachok V'nimtza Karov, where he's far away and turns out he's close. Almanasha Yeshlo Baso Shifcha, on the condition he has a daughter, or a Shifcha Mugudelis, or a grown maid, Ve'enlo, and he doesn't have one. Almanas She'enlo V'yeshlo, on the condition he doesn't have and he has. Almanas She'enlo Banam V'yeshlo, or Almanas on the condition he has no children, he really has. That he does have and he doesn't have. But cool, in all these cases, Afal Shamra Belibi Hayolas, and in all these cases, even if she said after she accepted it, she found out it wasn't like he said, she's not going to be betrothed. And also if she misled him with her conditions at the start of the betrothal. So now the Gemara says there's a story. There's a man who was selling his property. And everybody knew he was selling his property with the intent to go up to Israel. And when he was selling it, comes down to the table with the contract, the closing, he doesn't mention anything about the fact that he's going up to Israel. Rava said, well, the fact that he didn't specify, verbalize it, speak it out when he was selling the property shows that it's something of the heart. Dvarim shebalev. And dvarim shebalev ain't dvarim. Words of the heart are not going to be considered to be words. We don't count them as words. That's what Rava said. These are words of the heart, and we don't count them as words. Dvarim shebalev ain't dvarim. So the Gemara says, Menole Rava. How does Rava know this principle that words of the heart are not words? Maybe it comes from the following Mishnah, which we learned in Rosh Hashanah, Yevamos, and Bava Basra, Yakriv Osa. It says in the pasuk in Vayikra. So actually, this is not an actual Mishnah; it's a Brayso in Rosh Hashanah, Yevamos, and a similar Mishnah in Erechon. But if a person says he makes a vow to bring a carbon, so how do we know that we can force him to bring this carbon? Says the verse, we can't bring, we might think we could even force him against his will. Talmud, we can't do that. It says, so no. He has to willingly bring this carbon. Okay, we force him to bring it until he willingly says that he wants to do it. Ramai. Well, even if he says he willingly wants to do it, why is it a valid carbon? It's still not in his heart of hearts. He still doesn't want to do it. It must be because we're of the principle that since these are only words in his heart, they don't count. So that's the Gemara's proof. So the Gemara says that's not a proof. Dilma Shani Hasa, maybe that case is different than not Sahadi, because we know. Really, even though if he might think in his heart he doesn't want it, we know in his heart of hearts he does want it. He wants the atonement. Tell me safer. So perhaps the proof is the next clause. Because what does it say in the next clause? And so in the next the next clause of the Bryce, it says, so too you find by divorce and by freeing of slaves, where the person has to willingly do it, and it's not a case of kapara. And we say we force him until he says, I want to do it. Even though in his heart of hearts, Maybe he's saying, I don't want to do it. Actually, but maybe in his heart he doesn't want it. Must be because we're the position that words of the hearts are not words. So the Gemara says, maybe that case is also different. Because it's a mitzvah to listen to the words of the Chachamim, and he wants to do what the Chachamim tell him. And so if the Bezdin's ordering him to do the get, it's a mitzvah for him to listen. Rav Yosef, the source is from here. If somebody betroths a woman, Amar Kasavar Ayisi She Kohenes. So we're going to say the source from so the Gemara says we're going to learn this position from that which we're going to learn later on in Daf Samach Beis. Now Mekadesh is Aisha, V'Amar Kasavar Yisi She Kohenes. He marries a woman and he says, "Oh, I thought she was a Kohenes." Varei Levia, and it turns out she's a Levi. Levia v'Nimtzes Kohenes. Ania Varei Ashir. I thought she was poor and she's wealthy. Or Ashir Varei Ania. I thought she was wealthy and she's poor. We're going to say she's betrothed because she's not the one who tricked him. It was just he thought that Ramai. But why do we say that's the case? He said, I thought she was a Levi, and it turns out she's a Kohen, or the opposite. It doesn't matter what he thought. He didn't verbalize the conditional clause. Abai says, no, maybe that case is different. Maybe we're just saying to be strict, we're going to view them as betrothed. They need a divorce, but we're not saying that they could actually live together. So Abai says from here, so this comes from our Mishnah. Then all these cases, even though she says in her mind, I was agreeing to it when his condition was not met, where he said, I'm a Kohen, turns out he's a Levi, even though she said it doesn't matter to me, it's not a betrothal. Vamai, how come her believe me? But why? She said in her heart she didn't care, so she should be betrothed. Gemara says, V'dilma shani asam. Gemara says again. So the Gemara says again, maybe that case is different. The Kivan the Asne, because since he made the conditional clause, Rav Kol Kamine de Akralo Tanai. Then, since he made the conditional clause, we're going to say that once he makes the conditional clause, and so therefore he says explicitly on the condition that I'm a Kohen, turns out he's a Levi, and the woman heard it, and she didn't say, no, I want it to be exactly like that without the conditional clause. Therefore, if we're going to say Dvarim Shebalev are considered like words, then her thought alone cannot uproot the explicitly stated conditional clause. So therefore, what's our source for the idea of Dvarim Shebalev Einam Dvarim? And so there was once an incident with Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda went and asked in the academy of Rav Huna, Pashtua Meha. They answered it from the following case: Omer l'shlucho haveli minachalon minadusklama. This is a case having to do with misappropriation of temple property with Meila. If a person says to his agent, bring me some money from the window or from that bag, and he brought it for him, even though the Baal Bias, the guy who asked for the money, said, I only wanted A, and you brought B, since he brought him B, Baal Bias Mal. The Baal Bias is the one who's responsible. He misappropriated it. But Maya, Kamar Belibi, didn't in his mind, wasn't he saying I only want A? We're saying that Dvarim Shebalev, since this is something that he didn't verbalize, it doesn't count. And so therefore he's responsible there. And he says, maybe that case is different. Maybe we don't believe him, because he's trying to get out of bringing the carbon. So Gemara says, no, if he was really trying to get out of the carbon, so if he was really trying to get out of the carbon, he would have said, I did it intentionally. Gemara says, no, you can't make that claim. Nobody was going to say that they would have done something intentionally wicked in order to get out of bringing a carbon. Havile Lomar Niskarti, but he could have had a different explanation. He could have gotten a different way out of getting out of the misappropriation charge. He could have said, actually, I remembered it and I canceled it in my mind, because we learned Tanya Niskar Balabayas, well, Niskar Shliach, if the person who sent him remembered it, but the agent didn't send it, then it's going to be considered Mal. Then we're going to say the Shliach Mal. And the agent is the one who did the Me'ilah, because the Balabayas remembered it, he didn't want it anymore, even though he didn't tell the agent once he sent it. Who Gabra does Abninu and say Adaito Mesach Israel? There was a guy who sold his property with the intent to go up to Israel. Salak will Istarway. He left to go to Eretz Israel, and then he wasn't able to live there, either because he didn't have enough money or he didn't find a place to live. So he sold his property because he says, on the condition of going to Israel, but then he gets there and it doesn't work. So Amarava called the Salak Adaito Meidar, who he says, whoever went up, he went up with the intent to live there, and this person didn't live there, and so therefore he's going to be able to get. So therefore the sale has to be canceled. That's what Rava said. Ika da Amri, others say, Adaito Mesak Vasakle. He sold it with the intent to go up, and he went up. And so therefore the sale should be valid. This guy who sold his property with the intent to go to Israel was so for Salak, and then he never left. Ravashi by Salak. Ravashi said, if he wants to, he could go up now. And so therefore the sale is not canceled. Ikadamri by low Salak. Or alternatively, he said it as a question. If he wants to go up now, isn't he able to go up? He has the ability to go up. So my now, the distinction is if he was going up, but then he heard that there were robbers on the road. So according to the first approach, we don't cancel it because he would say, if he wanted to go past, follow the caravans, he could. But according to the second approach, since there was an ones on the road, that's why he didn't go. So therefore, the sale is canceled. Homer with shlucho, somebody says the Mishnah. Homer with shlucho say the kaddish leisha poni b'makom poni. Says to an agent, go and betroth for me this woman in this place. And what happened was, and he goes and he betroths her in a different place. And in Mukadeshes, she's not betrothed. If he says she is in this place, and he betrothed her in a different place, she's betrothed. So we see in the first case, if he says, go betroth me in this place, and when he betrothed her in a different place, she's not betrothed. But if he says she is in this place, he doesn't say go betroth her in that place. He just says she is in this place, and then even if he did it in a different place, she is betrothed. So Gemara says, don't we have this exact same issue by Gittin, by divorce? Homer to gets a lishti b'makom poni, divorce this woman in this place for nasal b'makom achar, and they gave it to her in a different place. It's disqualified. But already b'makom poni. But if he says, oh, she is in this place for nasal b'makom achar, and then he gave it to her in this other place, kosher. But tzricha, we need in both cases. The Yashmin gabi Kiddushin, we might say if it was just by betrothal, b'makom del korva ka'asei. He said, with respect to Kiddushin, he said, well, in that place, I want her to be betrothed to me because they're my friends. They're going to be saying nice things about me. And they're not going to say bad things about me. So I want you to betroth in that place. But I asked for Sunday, and in the other place, they hate me. And therefore don't do it because they're going to speak bad about me. If I get in, but divorce or where he's just trying to get rid of her, he's trying to divorce her. Well, he doesn't care. Yes, or if he said it by divorce, we'd say, in that place, he doesn't care if he's going to be a bad reputation. Because get, he was going to be embarrassed. But this other place, he doesn't care. But by the betrothal, maybe he doesn't care. So we need both places. Says the next Mishnah, marry a woman on the condition she has no vows, and him to Nadarim, turns out she has vows. And a Mekudesh is not betrothed. You marry her without mentioning anything, and him to Nadarim, and then you discover that there are vows. She leaves without a ksuva. Marry her on the condition she has no defects. And she has a defect. She's not betrothed. Let's say you marry her without mentioning anything. And then you find blemishes on her. She leaves without a ksuba. She's called mumen apostle bekohanim posel menashim. All the defects that disqualify kohanim disqualify women. The Tanan Nami Gabi Ksuvos, we had the same Mishnah by Ksuvos, Ki Agav now. So the Gemara says, well, Halcha Kiddushin Itzchichoy. Here we mentioned because of Kiddushin, so Tana Ksuvos up to Kiddushin. And so therefore, the Tana here mentions, the Tana here mentions Ksuvos because of Kiddushin. So because of Kiddushin mentions it. Hasam Ksuvos is Tzrichoy there, and Ksuvos it mentions it by Ksuvos, the Tana Kiddushin up to Ksuvos. So it mentions the Kiddushin because it's also mentioning Ksuvos. Now up to the last Mishnah on the Amud. So now if a man wants to betroth two women with a pruta, which is the minimum amount to betroth her, or he wants to betroth one woman with less than a pruta, even though he sends savonos. Rashi says savonos are gifts that a chassan had the practice of sending to his betrothed. So even though he sends after he betrothed her with less than a pruta, he sends the savonos lachar mikan ena mekudeshes. We're going to say she's not betrothed. Why not? Rashi says because we don't say that he sent the savonos for the purposes of betrothal. We don't say. Excuse me. We don't say that he knew. Excuse me. We don't say that he knew that the first act wasn't an act of betrothal, and now he's sending it for the purpose of betrothal, the savonos. But we say, but rather, he's sending it, and as just a continuation of the initial Kiddushin, and so therefore he's not sending it for new Kiddushin, so it's not a valid betrothal. So also a minor who tries to betroth her as a minor, which he can't do, and then after he becomes an adult, he sends her the gifts. It's not going to be a valid betrothal because he's still thinking he's betrothed from the first act. Gemara says, and we need to learn the case both of where he betroths two women with one pruta and one woman with less than a pruta. But we need both cases. If we had the case of just the case of where he betroths her with the value of a pruta, we would say, I did kanafik lemona mine. In the first case where he betrothed two women with a pruta, we'd say, well, at least he spent the pruta. You'll make a mistake. I think they're betrothed. And so therefore, it's not a betrothal with the savonas. But if he betrothed her with less than a pruta, we'll say, listen, he knows that it wasn't a valid Kiddushin less than a pruta. And now that he's sending her these gifts, that's the Kiddushin Kamashader. He's sending it with the intent to betroth her. If we just have both of these cases, Mishum Debain Pruta, Pachos Mishav Pruta, because people between pruta for two women or less than a pruta for one woman, people are not going to be, people don't know that it's not valid betrothal of a katan shakidesh, but if a minor did it, everybody knows that the minor's action is not going to be considered a valid action, and so therefore we wouldn't need to say it. So Ema Kikamashader, so therefore we might have thought that when the katan sends the savonos, Adatik Kiddushi Kamashader. We might have said, well, in that case, everybody knows he's sending it to betroth her. Mashma, we don't say that. So the Gemara now says, Rafuna Amar Savonos. Rafuna says that if a person sends bridal gifts after the betrothal, but it wasn't a valid betrothal, we're going to, let's say a person has discussion with a woman and he didn't do a betrothal with her, but then he sends her these gifts in front of witnesses. We have to be concerned that he's intending to betroth her with these gifts. And so therefore, if after the acceptance she becomes betrothed to another man, she's going to require a get from both of them. So that's what Rafuna says, we have to be concerned about Sabuanos. So Amarabo Mosfina Nashmaitin, and we can challenge this law, says Rabbah, that I taught that we're Choshel Sabuanos. We can challenge it because we have our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says Al Pisha Shal Sabuanos Achamikan in a Mikudesh, as it says explicitly. And even though she sends Savona, she's not betrothed. So that's a challenge on my teaching. So Abaye answers, Abaye Hasim Tani Tani, Shemachmas Harishonim Shalom. No, that case, the reason why the Savona is not a betrothal is because she's sending it as part of the first betrothal. So therefore, it's clear why it's not acceptable. But in general, we would be choshish for it. Then the Gemara says, Ikadamri, alternative version of this, Amarava, Minamino, Rabba says, how do I know that we're choshish for Savonos? As we explained, Shemachmas Kiddushin Marishonim Shalach. Because in the first case, in the case of Mishnah, why is it not a valid Kiddushin? Because, as explains, that he's sending it via the initial Kiddushin. But, so we say, so we're saying in that case, that where he said it as part of the initial Kiddushin, that's where he makes the mistake. But in general, we're going to say that if you send the Safwanos, it is a Kiddushin. Abaye says, Abaye says that Abaye says, it's a Abaye says that we can't prove anything from our Mishnah because it's possible that our Mishnah is saying is in the case of Lomibai, meaning to say Lomibai, not only in general, doing Nachas Torah's Kedushin Klal, where not only in general, where they're not even discussing Kedushin, where he didn't try to be betrothed her, and we're going to say that he doesn't intend to betroth her with her. I feel the Nachas Torah's Kedushin, but even our Mishnah, where he was already trying to betroth her, Ema Have Kedushin, you might have thought it is a valid betrothal there. So we don't say that. The Gemara asks, what's the answer in the case? How do we pass? In a case where a person does the betrothal and then sends the gifts, and then we have to be concerned for that it was a betrothal. But in a case where we do the gifts and only then do we do the betrothal, then we're not going to be, then that in that case we're not concerned. So the Gemara says, Pshita, in the case where you do the betrothal and then you send the gift, obviously it's the case that if he sent the gifts at the beginning, we have to be concerned that he sent them for the purposes of betrothal. Why does Rav Papa teach us this law? That Ba'asr the Mekadesh Adam Masable in a place where they typically have the Kiddushin and then betrothal, then we have to be concerned that his intent was to betroth her with these gifts. So the Gemara explains, well, we're talking about a case where most people do the betrothal and then send the gifts. And just a few people do the gifts and then send the betrothal. We might have thought we have to be concerned. We might say that they're not betrothed because of that minority. So we don't say that. That's the way we explain it based upon our girsa. But Tosfos says that's really strange because Chayshino Miyuta normally to be strict, and you might have thought here Chayshino Miyuta to be lenient. So that's why a lot of different Rishonim take a different approach to this. So we'll go with our printed text. Let's say witnesses saw in a person holding a ksuva with a woman's name in the marketplace. Can we learn from here that she's betrothed to him? That's not enough. It's impossible they just wrote the ksuva, but he didn't betroth her. Why would you think that that's enough to say she's betrothed? Well, if it's a place where first they do Kiddushin and then they write the ksuva, then we have to be concerned. But if they write the ksuva first in that place and only then do the Kiddushin, then we're not going to say they're betrothed. Well, if they only write the ksuva after the Kiddushin, it's obviously she's betrothed. Gemara says, no, we're talking about a case that the scribe is not common. So Ma'al Tema, Safu this Rami might have said, we found the scribe, we'll get the scribe to write it, and only then we'll do the Kiddushin. So we don't say that. So now we're up to the next Mishnah, Mekadesh, Isha Uvita. Let's say a man wants to betroth a woman and her daughter, or Isha Vachosa, or a woman and her sister, Ka'achas at once. Einan Mekudeshes. We're going to say they're not going to be betrothed, and neither one of them needs a get. And the Gemara is going to explain why. There was an incident with 5 women, and amongst these women were two sisters. And one person collected a basket of figs, and this basket belonged to these women, but it was the sabbatical year. So he says, you're all betrothed to me with this basket. And then one of them accepted for all of them. The rabbi said that the sisters here are not betrothed, but the other women are betrothed. So the Gemara asks, what's the reasoning? What's the reason that the Kiddushin are not able to be betrothed on a woman and her sister, or a woman and her daughter? And then the pasuk cannot take a woman and her sister to be co-wives. If they are going to be co-wives, then neither one of them could get married. So you can't marry both of them at once. They're going to cut them off from the people. Well, if they're not able to be married, then why do we say if you marry them, you're liable for kares? But there wasn't a valid marriage. The pasuk that tells us it doesn't work is telling us that if you marry the first woman and then you want to marry the second woman, so then that a person who's Mekadesh one woman, that he shouldn't go ahead and take her sister as a wife. And if he marries her, he gets kares. Umasnis in our Mishnah, where if you try to marry 2 women at the same time, neither one needs to get, that's like Rabbah. And any one woman you can't marry one after the other. If you try to marry them at the same time, it doesn't take effect at all. And so that's the conclusion of the Gemara. But now the Gemara is going to go into this discussion. And it's going to bring us into a whole other discussion of a fundamental concept of Kiddushin, She'em Misurin Labia, a Kiddushin which is not capable of consummating the marriage. Is it going to be a valid marriage? And that'll be, for God willing, tomorrow's daf. A big shkoyach to everyone. Shkoyach.